Mr. Senior, you're doing something right. You finally went out and got help, the help that I believe that he needs.
Welcome into Boxing Scenes, the top stories here on ProBox TV. Don't forget to download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Well, we have done a show, check it out, on ProBox TV about the 140-pound division and how loaded it is with talent, but also wide open. Can't really tell who's the man other than Teofimo Lopez, who recently training with EDDY REYNOSO, trainer of Canelo Alvarez. Is it something? Is it nothing? Is it a change he needs? All right, joining me to help solve all of these questions is, of course, the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, and ESPN boxing analyst Timothy Bradley. I'll start out with you, Tim. Looking at, number one, the talent, of course, of Teofimo Lopez. He hasn't been able to put it all together in a lot of fights, meaning we kind of get up and down performances. Could it be a change in training, or are we building up too much about this sit down, of course, with EDDY REYNOSO?
Oh, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I was clapping. I was saying, yes, Mr. Senior, you're doing something right. You finally went out and got help, the help that I believe that he needs. Look, think about it this way. Senior, I honestly, to be honest with you, he's a trainer of the year winner as well. Think about that. And then you got Canelo Alvarez. His trainer, Reynoso, is a trainer of the year. You put these two minds together, my gosh, you're going to have a hell of a package. I think that Reynoso can help him in teaching him how to break down his opposition the way Canelo does, similar. He has an explosive style similar to Canelo Alvarez. He's not more, he's more athletic than Canelo Alvarez. However, I think that he can help him with how to cut off the ring. I think that's been Lopez's problem. He doesn't know how to cut off the ring and throw punches where his opponent is going, whereas opposed where his opponent is at the time. And Canelo is brilliant at this, man. He's brilliant at making that ring very small for his opposition, hunting them down the right way, and he's kind of honed that skill. It's a perfect marriage here, man. And I think that moving forward, if he was to stay with Reynoso and his father, I think they'll do some big things, man, at 140 pounds for sure.
Chris, what I'm curious about, I call it the Phil Jackson problem. If you're a basketball fan, right? Often considered one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. When I look at the players he coached, I could probably coach those teams to a national title, right? Is there an overblown sense of what a coach does, or is it the right coach at the right time? And we're talking about once a boxer is developed. How important is it, Chris?
Oh, it's extremely vital, especially when you got a guy like Teofimo Lopez. And Tim, I agree with you 100%. I'm super excited. When I saw those videos right away, I was like, oh yeah, let's get this going. Because I remember when Joey Gamache was in camp with Teofimo, and I remember speaking to Joey and him telling me about how talented Teofimo was and how they really just worked on defense together. That was what his position in camp was. And I'm like, man, that's awesome to hear. That's brilliant. And that was around, I think that was when he knocked out Richard Comey, which is one of his best performances against a very, very dangerous guy. So what we're seeing now, I think it's a really good marriage in terms of trainer and fighter and talent. Because if you look at Canelo, the post-Mayweather Canelo, the counterpuncher, the head movement, the rhythm, the timing, yep. He's a different guy. He learned from that Mayweather fight, and he's really developed since then. Teofimo Lopez, I agree with you, Tim, better athlete than Canelo. Does all those things naturally and intuitively. What he's lacking is structure. Reynoso is a structure coach. That's why Canelo's like a robot in there, man. He cuts off that ring. He does everything step by step. If you watch his combinations, he looks like he's throwing them on the pads because they've thrown him on the pads 10,000 times. That's the structure. It's not we're not just winging it because you're a super athlete and you can see things and just react. But Teofimo sometimes that's kind of how he fights. He's just so reactive. He's so athletic. He sees things guys don't see. He's able to do things guys can't do. Almost like a Roy Jones-esque kind of fighter who can just be intuitive and make it happen. Canelo's not that guy. Canelo's trained in a very specific way. He has structure to his camp. He has structure to how he breaks down his opponent. He has structure on fight night. You add that structure to Teofimo's raw talent, yeesh, you got a whole different animal, and I'm here for it. I got front row seats for that.
Paulie, you've talked about the frustration, we all have, about the frustration of Teofimo Lopez, as Chris says, the talent, but his inability to kind of find consistency. He's up and down in a lot of his recent fights. Do you think a training shift is exactly what he needs to get the consistency it takes to be an all-time great? What's your thought?
I think Teofimo's father's helped him a lot. Obviously, he got to a very high level in his career, but I do think that there's been signs that show that maybe there's a little bit of help needed, maybe even from a psychological perspective, and even maybe from a technical perspective. Who knows? But I do think that there's probably a little bit of a change of scenery, a change of maybe a little bit extra spice could help. Now, sometimes when you get a former trainer of the year to help you, doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna help you even if he's hired. Styles have to blend, and they don't always blend together. I mean, I'd love to go into that conversation. That's a whole separate conversation for me as well. But in this particular situation, I actually like this matchup. I like this combination here because, you know, to use a term you use, Chris, you say slip and rip, and Canelo's a slip and rip guy. You know, Teofimo is kind of a slip and rip guy himself, but he's got those fast twitch muscles. I think he's more of a super athlete than Canelo. You brought out great points where Canelo is just more structured. Teofimo can be a slip and rip guy with super athleticism. And, you know, I think this kind of thing can kind of mesh together. The style that's taught by Canelo's trainer, Reynoso, and what Teofimo, the best attributes Teofimo brings, I think they can complement each other, and that's what's important. You can have a great trainer, you can have a great fighter, a good trainer, a good fighter. If the attributes don't complement each other, it's not going to work. Sometimes one has a different mentality than the other, and then one is not necessarily wrong, and the other one's not necessarily right. But it just means that they don't go together. I think these two guys actually, from having seen the style that Reynoso trains and the style in which Teofimo fights, I'm agreeing with you guys. I'm buying this. I'm not sold. I'm not folding these cards. I'm in this hand. You know, I like this. I think there's a lot of potential positivity here with this matchup, with this combination. As long as Teofimo's father is in for it as well, where, you know, you're not getting any mental stress from any kind of breakups, family or whatnot, then I think there's a lot of potential here to really see the best version of Teofimo, because I think we've seen a very high version of Teofimo, maybe even the best at times, but it's not been consistent. I think with the right people around him, we can get the best version of Teofimo. As deep in the 140-pound division is, this guy beats everybody.
The respect is there too, Paulie. You got the respect, you know, the father respecting Reynoso, and the son respecting Canelo and Reynoso, understanding that, hey, these guys, they know more than us. This guy is at the top of the sport, right? That helps. You know, and I also, was one more thing that I was going to say. Let me think. I got to think about it. Hold on. I lost it for a second. Anyways, I know the respect is there, and that's always great, because if you don't respect the trainer, if you think that you know more than the trainer that's coming in, then it's not going to work out. But you can visibly see in the videos that we saw that the respect is there by both, and this is something that the father has really thought about and said, you know what, this would be a great fit for us.
What I'm curious about, Chris, last question for you. When you look at a question that a lot of people have had, which is, will Teofimo go up to 147 pounds? I'm just looking at the video there. He's looking big. Now, I know we don't have a lot of context. Of course, next to Canelo, who's a decent-sized 168. He's looking big. What do you think about maybe a move up to 147, and could Reynoso help with that, Chris?
Yes, that's a great point, Jimmy. I saw the same thing you saw. As soon as I saw him doing those pad work, I'm looking at his lats, and I'm like, yeah, that's a different size Teofimo Lopez, because I always thought he was a small 40-pounder. And, you know, he was 35. He was a good-sized 35-pounder. He moved up in weight, but body didn't really change much, you know, first couple fights at 40. He's looking bigger now. He's the kind of guy who stays in year-round shape because of that athleticism. You see him. He's out there running routes with his dad. He's just an athletic guy. He likes to stay active. He's always fit. Now you start to pack on some of that muscle, but I think a lot of that ability for Canelo to move up in weight classes is the structure of their camp. And I think this is going to be coming into question here. This is the only question I have. Well, I have two questions. One, we don't want to get rid of Papa Lopez. I mean, he's done a great job. He's a fantastic coach. He knows his son a certain way that no one else does. Are they going to be able to mesh together, Reynoso and Teofimo Sr.? Are they going to be able to mesh? That's my first question. Second question, is Teofimo going to be able to deal with the work ethic that Reynoso demands?
Yes.
Ryan Garcia. I agree. I think so.
That's
But
what
like,
I was going. That work ethic. That's
Okay.
exactly where I was going. That boy works. He works his butt off.
That's
important.
I know that, but that was a question that's going to happen because that didn't work for Ryan, right? Ryan was with them. Everything was cool, but didn't seem like the work ethic melded. So if we can get those master trainers to work together, egos aside, and working for TEO, then boom, that's one. Two, is that structure and that work ethic going to be there for TEOFIMO in that vein of REYNOSO? And on top of that, to your point, Jimmy, once you add that structure and consistency in a boxing gym, that moving up a weight, putting on that mature muscle, because he's coming into his physical prime now.
Man muscle, right?
Man muscle. Yeah. He's going to be a different guy. I can see him at 47 now. You know, if he starts putting on that weight, and he's consistent, and he's fighting more often. That's another thing. You can't take long stretches off and then jump into these heavier weight classes.
But is that the division though? 47 is dead, man. Dead division, man. 40 is the division, man. Is that, I mean, moving up to 47, I mean, does it make sense? I know Norman is there. It could happen next year if he was to move up, but man, like
boots in us.
140 is that division that I think that he should stay in. Not unless Haney moves up to 47, Ryan Garcia moves up to 47. Then that's when you need to go ahead and follow that money and that competition.
Tim, I think that's where Teo's head's at. He's looking for names. He's looking for recognition. You know, he's looking for the money fights. And yeah, 40 is a good division. There's tough guys in there. Liam Paro is a tough fight, but is he that well known? Is that going to garner the money or the prestige? No. And that's where I think Teo's looking north. You know, I don't think he needs to go north, but I think he could. And there's opportunity there. 'Cause listen, I don't care. 47 is 47. It's welterweight. It's historic. You get another title, another weight class. It matters. So he's looking for prestige, which I understand.
What did a great man once say? You got the money, honey, then I got the time. And it looks like he will follow, as you said, wherever the big fights go, but a lot of great things in the future, of course, for a fighter as talented as Teofimo Lopez. And we have all the news, that's right, here on Top Stories. And this week, as you know, it's the week of 168 pounds. Not just this weekend, but Wednesday here on ProBox TV. A great showdown in the super middleweight division right before this Saturday. Don't miss it.
He's the pride of Guadalajara, the Mexican maestro, the unified super middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez. His challenger, undefeated knockout artist and pride of Puerto Rico, Edgar Berlanga. It's prime time.
Canelo versus Berlanga, plus Lara versus Garcia. Saturday, September 14th, live on PBC pay-per-view on Prime Video.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, September 11th. Rising Guatemalan star Lester Martinez puts his O on the line against fellow undefeated warrior Joe Sean Time James. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at ProBoxTV.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
Don't miss evenly matched, high-action fights. Wednesday Night Fights on ProBox TV. Scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play.